I found Elma's old diary by accident. It had been taped underneath the drawer of her childhood desk, hidden so carefully as if the words inside were poison. And maybe they were. I shouldn't have opened it, but I did. And on the very first page, written in her 16-year-old handwriting, were the words that cracked something deep inside me. Having this fool follow me around is repulsive. She was talking about me. Back then, I thought our story was innocent. We grew up in the same neighborhood, went to the same school, and somehow I believed I became a part of her life by choice, by affection. I was wrong. I remembered every moment I had proudly chased her around like some devoted idiot, thinking I was winning her over with my sincerity. I never realized I was the joke in her private thoughts. Now she's my fiancée. I stared at those words for a long time, the ink slightly smudged but still legible. Every letter screamed at me. I read on, page after page, watching the mask she wore in front of me fall apart in her own handwriting. Mom says if I smile at Benjamin more, he'll do anything I ask. I dared Deanna to flirt with him, and he actually believed she liked him. He's so gullible, it's sad. Sometimes I wonder if Philip would be jealous if I dated Benjamin. It'd be so funny. Every page shattered something I thought was real. I sat on the floor, diary in hand, and felt nothing at first. Not pain, not anger, just silence. The kind of silence that creeps into your bones and makes you realize how alone you are, even in a room filled with memories. Elma walked in 15 minutes later, smiling like nothing had happened, holding a slice of cake she'd made to surprise me. She kissed my cheek and told me she loved me. I looked at her, my hand still resting on the closed diary behind my back, and all I said was, "Yeah," because I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to confront. I was going to find out exactly who she was and what else she thought was funny, and then I was going to return every single favor. My name is Benjamin. I'm 24. I'm the guy people say has a good heart, a steady job, the kind of man you marry. And I was fine with that. I didn't need to be flashy. I didn't need to be admired. I just wanted someone who made the world feel a little less lonely. That someone, for most of my life, was Elma. We met when we were 9. I still remember how she used to hold the umbrella a little too close to her head, leaving my shoulder soaked as we walked home from school. She'd giggle and apologize without moving it, and I'd pretend it was fine. Even then, I liked her more than I probably should have. Elma was the kind of girl people noticed. Smart, beautiful, the kind of presence that left a space behind when she walked away. I was never the center of attention, just the guy next to her, carrying her bags, helping with her assignments, sitting silently while she talked about things I didn't understand. I thought that meant I was important to her. I was wrong. But back then, I didn't see the difference between being needed and being used. In high school, she'd tug my sleeve to walk her to class even when Philip, the guy every girl had a crush on, was clearly around. I thought I was the one she chose, but sometimes I'd catch the way she'd glance at him when she thought I wasn't looking. I told myself I imagined it. Then came Deanna, Elma's best friend since middle school. Sweet, warm, loud, in a comforting kind of way. She treated me like I mattered, asked how my day was, laughed at my stupid jokes, even brought me chocolate milk when I forgot to eat. I used to wonder why someone like her wasn't the one I liked, but my heart was already too deep in the wrong place. Elma never told me she liked me, not really. But she didn't have to. She smiled at just the right moments, leaned on me just enough to make it impossible to let go. And when she finally agreed to date me in college, it felt like I'd won something impossible. We'd been together for almost 3 years when I proposed. She cried. Or at least, it looked like she did. She said yes. Held me so tight I thought her heart might finally be beating for me. Now I realize she probably cried for a different reason. Maybe guilt. Maybe fear. Maybe she didn't expect me to go through with it. We live together now. A modest apartment, 2 bedrooms, though we only use one. I still handle the chores. She still does most of the talking. Most nights I cook dinner and she scrolls through her phone on the couch. Sometimes I watch her from across the room and try to believe the love in her eyes is real. But that illusion cracked the day I found the diary. It's not just the words she wrote when she was 16, it's that nothing she said or did afterward contradicts them. Not really. I just wasn't paying attention. I was so grateful to be loved, I never questioned whether it was real. After reading the diary, I started to watch her more closely. The way her expression changes when I enter the room. The way she smiles harder when she's texting than when she's looking at me. The way her phone is always face down, always locked. And the way she says, "I love you," like it's punctuation, not truth. At first, I thought maybe I was being paranoid. Maybe it was just insecurity talking. But then I saw the group chat name pop up on her screen when she was in the shower. I didn't need to unlock her phone to see it. Operation Benjamin. She never used that name for anything else. That's when I knew this wasn't just some childish mistake she grew out of. It was something she enjoyed, something she was still doing. I haven't told her I know. I haven't told anyone. Not even Deanna, though she still messages me from time to time, like she misses being part of my life. But I'm watching them all now. Every word, every smile, every joke that sounds a little too pointed. And every time Philip's name pops up in conversation, I listen more carefully, because this time, I won't be the fool. This time, I'll play the role they think I was born to play. I'll be obedient, loving, naive, the perfect man. Right up until the moment I decide they've had enough. They say love makes people blind. But heartbreak, that makes people see everything. And now I see everything. 3 days after I read Elma's diary, I came home to find her humming in the kitchen, barefoot, wearing my hoodie like she always used to. It should have felt intimate, familiar. But now, everything she did looked like strategy. She glanced over her shoulder and smiled, just wide enough to disarm me. "You're early," she said, like she was genuinely happy. I kissed her forehead and said nothing. She didn't notice the shift, or maybe she did, but she didn't care. She served dinner, steak, mashed potatoes, sautéed greens. She knew it was my favorite. She only made it when she wanted something. I watched her cut her food delicately, laughing at her own joke about the woman in her office who wore too much perfume. I pretended to laugh too, but my mind was already 3 moves ahead. "Deanna's coming over tomorrow," she said casually. "She wants help picking out a dress for Philip's birthday dinner. Can you believe he's turning 26? We're all getting old." There it was again. Philip. Her tone was careful, friendly, light, but not indifferent. I poured myself more water, nodding. "And you'll be there too, right?" she asked, voice playful. "You're not going to leave me alone with Deanna and Philip?" I met her eyes. "Of course, why wouldn't I be?" She grinned. "Good, because he still makes me nervous. You're my emotional support pillow." She called me her pillow. She'd said it before. I used to think it was cute. Now it just sounded accurate. That night, she fell asleep on the couch. I covered her with a blanket, careful not to wake her. Then I walked to her room, her old room, the one she used to sleep in before we started sharing the bed. I sat down at her desk and slowly pulled out the drawer again. The diary was still there, behind a stack of old college notebooks. I opened to a random page. I wonder if he'd cry if I kissed Philip in front of him. Deanna thinks he would. She says Benjamin wears his heart on his sleeve. I think it's true. I closed the diary. The next day, Deanna arrived around noon. She smelled like warm vanilla and peppermint. She hugged me tightly like she always did, her voice soft near my ear. "It's been too long." I smiled, returning the hug with just enough tension to make her think I hadn't changed. She walked into the apartment with that familiar bounce in her step, chatting about traffic and the weather. Elma lit up when she saw her, pulling her into the bedroom as they squealed about a dress one of them had bought. I stayed in the living room, sitting on the edge of the couch, staring at my phone. And then I heard it, from behind the closed door, Elma's voice. "But you think he suspects anything?" Deanna's voice, a little quieter. "I don't know. He's too calm lately, like watching everything. Maybe it's just work stress, Elma said quickly. He's always been slow to react. I couldn't hear the next part. Just laughter. Then silence. When they came out again, both of them acted like nothing happened. Deanna asked me to rate the dress she picked. Elma made a joke about how I always play the gentleman and never give real answers. I gave the dress an 8.5. They laughed. At Philip's birthday dinner that weekend, the restaurant was dimly lit, too expensive, and filled with polished strangers who didn't belong to any of us. Elma sat beside me, her hand resting on my knee beneath the table. Across from us, Philip sat with a smug sort of confidence, joking with Deanna like he owned the night. When the dessert came, Philip raised his glass. "To the people who've stuck around," he said, grinning. "And to those who will always be more than friends." Everyone clapped. Elma laughed. Deanna blushed. I took a sip of my wine. It wasn't until later, outside the restaurant, that the real crack formed. We were waiting for our rides, the night air too cold for Elma's thin dress. I took off my coat and placed it around her shoulders without a word. From behind me, I heard Philip speak quietly to Deanna, but not quietly enough. Still can't believe she's actually going through with it. Marrying Benjamin? She must really want to win this game. I turned my head just slightly, enough for him to realize I heard. His smile faded, just for a second. Then it returned. Deanna looked nervous, like she wanted to say something but couldn't. Elma's phone vibrated. She pulled it from her clutch and read something. Her expression shifted briefly, and then she slipped the phone back inside. When she caught me looking, she gave me a smile that didn't match her eyes. That night, as we lay in bed, her hand slipped into mine. "You okay?" she asked softly. "I'm good," I whispered back. But in that moment, I knew the truth. This wasn't a relationship. It was a performance, and I was the only one still pretending not to know. I stopped looking her in the eyes when I said, "I love you." It felt like I was lying. Or maybe I was just tired of searching her face for a reaction I'd never find. Elma hadn't changed. She still curled up next to me every night, still asked if I wanted sugar in my coffee, still kissed me goodbye in the mornings. But none of it felt real anymore. It wasn't that she stopped pretending. It's that I stopped believing. Some mornings I'd wake up before her and just watch her sleep. Her face was peaceful, soft in the early light. And yet, even then, all I could think about was the way she used to write about me, like I was disposable, like I was a tool, like my feelings were a running joke in her life. Having this fool follow me around is repulsive. I didn't know how many times I'd repeated that line in my head by now. Maybe 100. Maybe 1,000. It echoed, especially on the quiet nights. Especially when I tried to convince myself that people change. That maybe, somewhere along the way, she had fallen in love with me for real. But I couldn't believe that. Not when she smiled too brightly whenever Philip texted. Not when Deanna looked at me with those guilty eyes, like she wanted to tell me something but always stopped herself. Some nights I'd stare at the ceiling while Elma slept beside me, and I'd wonder what she'd do if I told her I knew. I placed her diary on the bed and asked her to explain each page, one by one. Would she deny it? Laugh it off? Cry? Would she finally admit it was always a game? The worst part was, despite everything, despite knowing every lie and every cruel word, a part of me still loved her. Or maybe it was the version of her I thought was real. The Elma I created in my head, kind, loyal, soft-spoken, and sincere. That Elma never existed. I was grieving someone who was never alive to begin with. Sometimes Deanna would text me late at night. Just simple things. "Are you okay?" Or "Need anything?" I never responded. I didn't trust her. But I didn't hate her either. In some twisted way, I believed she felt bad. Like maybe she didn't expect it all to go this far. Maybe she was dragged into it and didn't know how to escape. But that didn't matter. Not anymore. Guilt didn't fix anything. And pity doesn't erase betrayal. What hurt more than the diary was how well they could all smile in front of me. I kept thinking, was there ever a time I wasn't being lied to? Ever a day when I wasn't a puppet in someone else's performance? I started spending more time outside the apartment, pretending to work late, taking long walks, sitting in cafes, without touching my coffee, just watching people, couples holding hands, strangers laughing into their phones, real, genuine, effortless. I envied them. Every now and then, Elma would ask if something was wrong, her voice always light, testing, careful. I'd shake my head. Just tired, I'd say. That was always the answer. And she'd smile as if that explanation was good enough. It always had been. She never pushed further. That told me everything I needed to know. If she loved me, truly loved me, she would have noticed. She would have asked again, but she never did. Then came the night I opened the shared laptop looking for a receipt. I found a folder she thought she had deleted, titled Drafts. Inside were half-written messages, unsaved plans, a checklist, convince, him to book the honeymoon before summer. Talk to Deanna about throwing a surprise party in case he gets suspicious. Make sure Philip doesn't text during dinner again. Almost got caught. I sat there, staring at the screen, my hands still on the keyboard. The silence in the apartment roared. She was planning the wedding like it was a mission, a game level she needed to beat. My love wasn't something she felt. It was just another task to complete, another prize to collect. I closed the laptop and leaned back in the chair. A hollow feeling spread through my chest. I wasn't angry, not anymore. I was numb, cold, detached. It was the kind of emptiness you only feel when the person you love has died, but their body is still walking around. Knew then what I had to do. But it wasn't time yet. I still needed to understand one thing. Why? What was the reason for all of this? Why choose me? Why accept the proposal? Why keep the act going for years? Was it some twisted competition, a bet, some sick thrill? I had to know. Not because I wanted her back, but because I wanted to bury whatever part of me still looked at her, with hope. And I couldn't do that until I heard the truth from her own lips. 2 weeks later, I came home earlier than usual. I hadn't told Elma. I wanted to see what she was like when she didn't expect me. The lights were dim. Music was playing softly from the bedroom. Some mellow acoustic track she only played when she wanted to feel calm. Or maybe when she wanted to cover up the sound of her voice. I walked slowly down the hall, past the kitchen, past the silent living room. My footsteps were silent. Years of trying not to wake her had made me good at moving like a ghost in this apartment. Then I heard her laugh. It wasn't forced. It wasn't fake. It was warm and light and soft in a way she never laughed around me. Her bedroom door was closed, but her voice came through easily. I swear, if he ever found out, I'd die of embarrassment. Then a pause. Then Philip's voice, low but unmistakable. He won't. You're too smart for that. My hand gripped the door frame. I didn't move. I didn't burst in. I didn't even breathe. I feel guilty sometimes, Elma continued, her voice quieter now. He's good. Benjamin's good. He's never done anything wrong. Then why are you still with him? Philip asked. There was a pause. Then she whispered, because I want to see if someone like that can still break. The silence that followed felt endless. My chest didn't hurt. It burned. Not because it was new, but because it confirmed everything I already knew. Everything I refused to believe until now. She wasn't confused. She wasn't pressured. She wasn't unsure. She was enjoying it. I stepped back from the door like I'd touched fire. I didn't make a sound. I walked out of the apartment the same way I came in, like a shadow. That night, I didn't go home. I sat in my car until 2 a.m., watching the streetlights flicker above the empty road, trying to understand what I just heard. I thought I'd been numb before. I thought the diary, the fake messages, the laughter, the lies, they'd already drained me dry. But this was different. This wasn't manipulation. This was cruelty. She wasn't just using me. She was breaking me on purpose, for fun. I drove across the city and sat outside an old diner I used to go to with my mother before she passed. I didn't eat. I just watched people come and go, all of them living in a world where someone like Elma didn't exist, and I knew I had to change something. That night, I pulled out her diary again. I read every page, word for word. I didn't flinch. I didn't get angry. I didn't cry. I just absorbed it. There was one line near the end I'd never noticed before. If Benjamin ever stops loving me, it's because someone else has finally taught him how. I read that line 3 times, and for the first time since this began, I smiled. Because maybe she was right. Maybe someone could teach me how, and maybe, just maybe, she already had, by showing me what love wasn't. The morning I planned it, Elma kissed me on the cheek and told me she'd be out late. Deanna wants to go shopping, she said casually. We might grab dinner with Philip, too. He's helping her pick a suit for her dad. It was always the same pattern now. A lie with a sprinkle of truth. I didn't argue. I nodded, said, "Sounds good," and offered to pick up groceries on the way back from work. She smiled, slid her arms around my waist, and said, "You're the best fiancé ever." It was the last time she'd ever say those words to me. I waited until she left. Then I called Deanna. She didn't answer at first, but when I called again, she picked up. "Hey, Benjamin," she said, sounding uneasy. "What's up?" "Can we talk?" I asked calmly. "In person? Somewhere quiet?" There was a long pause. I could hear the hesitation in her breath. Then she said, "Okay, the cafe near the park? Give me 30 minutes. I got there early. I sat by the window. I watched people walking their dogs, a couple arguing by a bench, 2 teenagers sharing fries and laughing like the world wasn't broken. I envied them for a moment, but I didn't want to be like them anymore. I didn't want to be blind again. When Deanna walked in, she looked around nervously before spotting me. She walked over, pulling her coat tighter, her eyes scanning my face like she expected blame or bitterness. I gave her neither. "Thanks for coming," I said. She sat across from me, hands folded, eyes lowered. "If this is about Elma, it is," I interrupted gently. "But not how you think." She looked up, confused. "I'm not here to scream or accuse," I said. "I already know everything. The diary, the group chat, the games, Philip. I've seen it all, Deanna. I heard them." Her breath hitched. "I just want one thing," I continued, voice even. "The truth." She stared at me for a long time. Then slowly, her shoulders sank. "I never thought it would go this far," she said quietly. "It started as a joke, a stupid game in high school. Elma, she's always been like this, testing people, pushing limits. And you," she paused. "You were the only one who never pushed back. You just loved her." I didn't speak. "She told me once that it made her feel powerful," Deanna whispered. "Having someone like you wrapped around her finger. I told her to stop. I swear I did. But she'd always smile and say it wasn't serious. That she'd stop once she figured out what she wanted. She already knew what she wanted," I said, my voice lower now. "It wasn't me." Deanna looked away. "She's with Philip," I added. She nodded. "And she thinks I don't know." Another nod. "Then why stay?" I asked. "Why keep the act going? Why say yes when I proposed?" There was pain in Deanna's eyes now. "Because she didn't want to lose." To who? To herself. To the idea that she could do all of this and still be loved, still win, still end up with the trophy. You were the trophy, Benjamin. The proof that she was untouchable. I leaned back in my chair, exhaling slowly. "So that's all I was." "I'm sorry," she said. and it sounded like she meant it. I tried to stop her, but it was like she wasn't even listening anymore. It was about control, not love. There was a long silence, then I said, "I need your help." Deanna blinked. "With what?" "I want her to see me break, just once, so she can feel like she won." She frowned. "You want her to believe you're still in the dark?" I nodded. "I want her to think I'm still the fool she can toy with." Deanna hesitated. "And then what?" I looked her in the eye. "Then I'll leave, and I won't leave quietly." Later that evening, I set the final plan in motion. I called Elma, told her I missed her, asked if she'd be home by 9 so we could watch that documentary she pretended to like. She sounded pleased. "Of course, I'll be home before you know it." I cooked dinner, set the table, lit a candle. It was all perfect. When she walked in, she looked surprised. "You didn't have to go through all this," she said. I smiled. I wanted to. We ate. She talked. I listened. Pretended I was still the same Benjamin she'd always known. Steady, harmless, forgiving. After dinner, we sat on the couch. I put on the documentary. 15 minutes in, she fell asleep on my shoulder. I looked down at her, and for a second, I saw her the way I used to. Then I reached into my pocket and pulled out the USB. On it were copies of the diary scans. Voice. Recordings from the hallway outside her room, screenshots from the group chat Philip had been too stupid to clear out. I uploaded it all to a cloud folder, labeled it Benjamin, the real story. Then I left. I didn't pack a bag, I didn't leave a note, I just walked out the door and disappeared into the night. 3 hours later, the folder link was sent to everyone in our circle. Her parents, my parents, our mutual friends, Philip's family, her co-workers. The truth went public before she even woke up. She called me 47 times. I didn't answer once. I watched her reputation collapse in real time. One by one, the people who used to adore her started to turn away. Philip vanished. Deanna disappeared from her side. And Elma? She tried to call a press conference of apologies, but no one showed up to hear her speak, because no one believed her anymore. The world knew what she was, and I never had to raise my voice. All I had to do was let her bury herself. It's been 6 months since I left Elma. 6 months since I set the truth free like a slow, merciless fire that devoured everything she built out of lies. 6 months since she stopped being the star everyone admired and became the cautionary tale everyone whispered about. I didn't block her after everything happened. I didn't need to. After the first few desperate attempts to contact me, apologies, threats, bargains, she stopped trying. Maybe she finally realized there was no version of herself she could create that I would ever believe again. But Deanna didn't disappear completely. One rainy afternoon, she found me sitting at a small coffee shop downtown. She didn't order anything, just sat across from me and placed an envelope on the table. Inside were photos, screenshots, bank statements, proof that Philip had been using Elma from the beginning, taking money she didn't have, laughing about it behind her back with his. Friends boasting that he could make her do anything if he dangled enough affection in front of her. Deanna had gathered it all after everything fell apart, not because she wanted to help Elma, but because maybe she still believed someone should pay. "She's ruined," Deanna said quietly. "But I thought you should have this, in case you ever doubted yourself, in case you ever wondered if you went too far." I closed the envelope without looking at the contents again. "I don't need proof," I said. I saw everything I needed to see the moment she smiled at me and lied. Deanna hesitated. "Benjamin, you were always the best of us, even when we didn't deserve it." I looked out the window, watching the rain streak down the glass like the world itself was trying to wash away the past. "I'm not the best," I said. "I'm just the only one who learned how to stop playing their games." Deanna smiled sadly. She didn't try to argue. Maybe she finally understood that apologies, regret, even revenge, they don't fix what's broken when trust is the thing you destroyed. She left the cafe a few minutes later. I stayed, finishing my coffee slowly, savoring the quiet. There was no celebration, no parade, no dramatic music swelling in the background, just peace. A few weeks after that, I got a letter. Not a text, not an email, a real letter, handwritten and messy. It was from Elma. She didn't beg for forgiveness. Not this time. She said she understood why I did what I did. She said she didn't hate me. That, in some twisted way, she admired me for finally standing up, for proving that even the quietest heart could become the sharpest blade when betrayed. At the end of the letter, she wrote, "If there's anything left in you that still remembers, the good parts of us, just know I'm sorry you ever met me." I folded the letter neatly and threw it into the fireplace without a second thought. I watched it burn until it was nothing but ash, because the truth is I don't remember the good parts anymore. All I remember is that when it mattered, she chose cruelty over kindness, pride over love, control over honesty, and I chose myself over all of it. A few months later, I accepted an offer from a top design firm in a different city, a place where no one knew my name, no one whispered about scandals, no one looked at me like I was the poor fool who almost married the wrong person. Packed light. I didn't need much, just the essentials, and a new beginning. On my last day in the old apartment, I stood in the living room, staring at the empty walls. It didn't feel like loss. It felt like shedding a skin that was never really mine. Before I left, I placed one thing in the center of the floor, Elma's old diary, still intact, still filled with every cruel word. I left it there not as a warning, not as a symbol of victory, but as a grave marker. The final proof that the person I used to love never really existed. As I closed the door behind me for the last time, I didn't look back. I didn't need to. I had already buried everything that mattered in that place. I caught my flight that evening, the city lights below fading like dying embers. In the new city, things moved differently. The air smelled cleaner. The people smiled wider. The possibilities stretched out in front of me like a road I could finally walk without carrying the weight of betrayal. I met new friends, built a new life, piece by piece, step by step, and I never once missed the life I left behind. Sometimes, late at night when the world is quiet and I'm sitting alone under the stars, I think about what happened, not with anger, not with sadness, just with understanding. Elma taught me something no one else could. That loyalty is precious. That trust is sacred. That love without honesty is a beautiful lie waiting to rot. And most importantly, that survival isn't about how much you can endure. It's about when you finally decide you're worth more than what you're being given. The boy who once chased after a smile is gone. The man who chooses his own worth over empty promises remains, and that, in the end, is the only revenge that truly matters. Living well, without them, without regret, without looking back.